Okay, good morning and welcome back to day 4 of the Little Lizard King Dive into Swimwear Sew Along. We just finished constructing the front of the Laguna vintage ruffled bottom. I've got both of my ruffles top stitched now. I went ahead and grabbed my lining pieces and the back main and lining, and I hinted yesterday in the group that I would show you how we would sew the lining into the side seams and the bottom seam in one step, and everything would be ready to add elastic. I actually had filmed these are the Monaco bottoms. I took a video earlier showing this process, and when I paused it to top stitch this last part to show you guys, my phone cut the video off and deleted it. So here we are with the Laguna bottoms. Luckily I have 2 girls, so I had to do this twice anyways. What we're going to do is you're going to separate out your lining pieces and your main pieces. So your lining's going to go on one side. Your main pieces are going to go on the other side. You're going to put them right sides together. Now on my swim lining, there is no right or wrong side, so you're just going to put them to match up the seams. Some swimwear lining that I've gotten from Joann Fabrics has a distinct right and wrong side. Alright, what we're going to do now is we're going to secure these sides with little dabs of glue. So I'm going to come over here and right along the edge, I'm going to get my glue ready. If you have a glue stick, you can use a glue stick too. You just want little dabs of glue. You don't need a lot. You're just going to match up the raw edges. Okay. You're going to do this on both the main and the lining for both side seams and the bottom seam. And then we're going to get one more of the lining. Match those up. Move on to the main. Then after we get these glued, I'm going to show you how to stack them. There's a certain order that you stack the pieces, and this will allow them to be fully lined and hidden in the seams. There's that. I got that side seam. I'm going to do this one. one last one. Again, we're just using a small amount of glue. The glue will be trimmed away. Okay, so we've got that. We're going to take our lining pieces and you're going to lay it so the bottom piece is on the bottom, the front piece is on the top. You're going to take your main fabrics and you're going to lay your front piece down and your back piece will be on top. Okay, so it's got back lining, front main, back main, those four. These three seams. Keep our seams, our seam allowance, sandwiched between the back main and the back lining. So that seam allowance will be pushed toward the back. If you want the seam allowance to be pushed towards the front, you basically just reverse it. So you flip this first piece and then you flip this so that way the front pieces are sandwiching the back pieces. So we will go ahead and use our clips. And then we're going to use our stretch stitch. I use the lightning bolt. Some machines do not have the lightning bolt, so you can use a long, narrow zigzag. You can also use the triple stretch stitch. I do not recommend that if you think at all you're going to have to unpick any of the seam, because that is a nightmare to unpick. I'm going to move this down. You want to make sure everything's all lined up. Okay, so I've got it all clipped. We're going to go over to the sewing machine. Okay, I'm going to use my lightning bolt stitch. I'm going to switch out of my top stitch foot back to my regular. Sometimes if your foot is too open, it can allow your fabric to go in the feed dogs. We're going to start right up at the top. Now remember, we're sewing through all 4 layers of fabric here. Keeping our seam allowance all the way down. I noticed when I got here, my lining front had shifted just slightly. Now you'll notice on these patterns that it's straight across the edge right here. That's where your stitch should hit when you're stitching. So it should hit right where it goes from angled to straight. All right. Again, I should be hitting right here with my seam allowance. So if you're blending sizes, this straight portion should still only be a 1/2 inch wide. All right, got my last one. And you can see right the way I'm sewing it, I've got my lining down. You can have your lining up. It's honestly up to you. But you can see that I'm not going to do anything. I'm not pulling on my fabric. I'm making sure I stay at that seam allowance. We're almost to the end. We're to the very end. I'm going to backstitch. Okay, we're going to go back over to the table. We'll review what we've got. Our main pieces on one side, our lining pieces on the other. They're connected just by single rows of stitching. What we're going to do now is we're going to trim all of these seams. If you have a serger, you can trim off, or you could just trim with, I prefer pinking shears. This just reduces the bulk. Trim my threads. Okay. Now, you're going to separate your main front and your main back, and you're going to flip it right side out. And then it is all enclosed. You can see the seam allowance pointing towards the back. Your last step before attaching elastic, which we're going to do tomorrow, you will want to baste of everywhere that you're going to be adding something. So the waist and both leg holes, you're going to baste together. You can use dabs of glue or like a glue stick, but just keep in mind those seams are going to get, or those edges are going to get elastic sewn on top, so nothing will be trimmed off. Go ahead and do a quick baste, and I just use a real narrow zigzag, so that way it still has stretch. I don't have to worry about that. Right now I'm just showing you how I would secure the lining and main. You want to make sure if you're doing the rough, so you would go to your machine and do a zigzag right around the edge. I'm going to show you what it looks like finished. This is on the Monaco pattern, and this way, when we add our elastic to the line, our lining will not shift. Secured. So that is constructing the bottoms. I will do one last video today of the waistband on Monaco because it is not elastic, so we'll go ahead and add that today. And I can't wait to see everyone's progress so far, and you guys are doing a great job sewing. Some of you are brand new to swim, and you're going to be addicted because it's fun to sew. All right, bye.